James. Hi, my name is James. This is James Loves Games. Good morning on this happy August 3rd, 2023. How's everybody doing? Today, I'm so hyped about August. As it says in the title, seriously. I mean, we've gotten such a deluge of amazing games coming out in 2023. I think I'm eventually going to do a podcast episode when we get towards the end of the year where I just have to discuss whether 2023 is in fact the best year of gaming we've ever had. I'm not going to touch on that too much just yet. I'm just talking about August, this month that we are currently in. It's stacked. It's very stacked, full of goodness, and there's a couple of titles this month, you can probably tell from the thumbnail, that I'm particularly excited for, but some others that I think might just fly under my radar, or under a lot of people's radar, that will probably end up being pretty cool hits as well. Brett Williams in the chat. Good morning, James. Good morning, Brett. Thank you for joining. It's got to be, what, like 5:30 in Colorado? So kudos to you for getting up and listening. So yeah, I don't even know where to begin with this. Let's just, we could just go through these chronologically, because the one I'm most excited for is coming out later in the month anyway, so we'll just do that. I've got a list. Let's go through the list. So, I mean, obviously today, August 3rd, is a big day in gaming because Baldur's Gate 3. And if you're unfamiliar with the Baldur's Gate series, it is the RPG franchise. I mean, and by RPG, I mean like tabletop RPG turned video game RPG franchise. It's based in the Forgotten Realms world of Dungeons and Dragons, which is a common sort of commonly used setting for a lot of Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It's kind of like the most popular D&D setting. I know the Drizzt novels are set there, and many other popular franchises are as well. And so Baldur's Gate 3, I believe it's been at least 10 years since Baldur's Gate 2 came out. And gosh, I remember my roommate in college was playing Baldur's Gate, and that was a long time ago. Don't ask me how long, but it was a while ago. And so it's a storied franchise that's been around forever. But what's interesting is that it was picked up. I'm not sure who originally developed Baldur's Gate. Let me check Baldur's Gate 2. It was BioWare of all people. That's right. BioWare, you might remember, were the developers of Mass Effect, Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire, great games all, great RPGs all. And so they were in charge of Baldur's Gate 2. And so that came out in 2000. Baldur's Gate 2 did. So that was a while ago. And they had several, expansions and things like that in the years since. But yeah, it's been a while. So Baldur's Gate fans have been waiting very patiently. And I think a lot of them might not have even been around for the last release. But it's looking to be a really good one. But BioWare's not doing this one. This one's actually developed by Larian Studios, who, if you're familiar with the RPG genre at all, or the ARPG genre, I suppose, if you're familiar with Divinity: Original Sin, they developed 1 and 2 of Divinity, which both were heavily praised by just about everybody under the sun for being incredible role-playing experiences. And I myself have played through all of Divinity Part 1 with the Drink Fairy, and we both really enjoyed it. And we got about probably a third of the way through Part 2, and then I think I ended up having my Xbox quit working, and so it wouldn't read the disc anymore. And so I actually got it on PS4. I got the PS4 version for the PS5, and we played it for a bit, but it was kind of like, I don't want to go through all this all over again. It's quite a long and involved process, but If you're into just like really in-depth experiences with actual role playing, like you make your own characters, you have dialogue options, you make choices in the world, and it's like the video game version of a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So if you've ever been curious about what that's all about, Baldur's Gate 3 is a great place to look. And I knew it got some notoriety a couple weeks ago for one of the trailers where you can supposedly do it with a bear, but it was a druid in bear form. And so you got to understand that Larian Studios, they have a great sense of humor. And I think some people took offense at the trailer. What is the world coming to type of stuff. But it's like, if you ever played a D&D campaign, or you've ever watched like Critical Role or any of these kind of more popular D&D programs or channels, like you realize like a lot of like tabletop role playing is just downright silliness. So it's nice that they're able to sort of tap into that silliness and give you options to make you laugh. So Brett Williams says, I really want a JLG Baldur's Gate crew. You know, I might. It's not on my radar at this point. It's one of those types of games, like I respect them and I understand the appeal, but I have so many other games I would rather play than Baldur's Gate. So, especially even just in August, like I'll get to them. Honestly, August alone, I've got like 3 or 4 games I would play before I got to Baldur's Gate, but I've got a bunch on my systems right now that I'm going to play before then. So it might be one of those things where when it's on sale in a year, you know, if it's a PS Plus freebie or whatever. But yeah, I'll probably get to it eventually, but it'll be a while. So that's Baldur's Gate. It's going to be really cool. You're going to see, and Larian really, they make good games. Like I will say, like I'm sure the PC version of Divinity probably ran better than my like Xbox One version of it. It got pretty janky and buggy, and there were lots of restarts and things like that. But there's a lot going on in that game, and I think it was probably very difficult to put on consoles and have it do well, but it worked fairly well. So, you know, it'll be nice for me to wait until they iron all the bugs out, but you know, they put out good stuff. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. I don't even know if it's coming out on console right out the gate. Let me see. Let me check real quick. Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be out on... Oh, that's weird. Google says the initial release date is October 6th, 2020. Yeah, I'm not seeing that. Not seeing that at all. So it's available on PC and PS5. So there you go. If you're interested in Baldur's Gate and you have one of those, go get it. So yeah. Next on the list, we're just going to go down chronologically for August. There's a bunch of titles in here that, you know, I haven't looked into all of these. And so maybe one of these, I don't want you to be like watching this like, oh, I can't wait till he mentions Gourd. You know, there's some of these I've never heard of, like Gourd coming out August 8th. I don't know what that is. There's no description on this on website. I'm on Polygon right now. Love it or hate it. But I don't know what Gourd is. It's coming out August 8th. WrestleQuest. It looks like it's going to be a crazy indie version of some kind of pro wrestling game. Atlas Fallen. I have a vague recollection of what this game is. Oh, that's right. It's Atlas Fallen just kind of looks like one of these kind of mundane. I won't say mundane, but like I don't see that it does anything special particularly. It's you know, the title, the graphics, the gameplay, it all looks like a dozen other games that are out or coming out soon. So I'm not really sure what to make of that one. August 15th. Here we go. Here's another good one. Blasphemous 2. Now, I know I still have plans to play Blasphemous 1. I played Blasphemous, the demo, on the Nintendo Switch I think before I even started this channel, and I really enjoyed it, but it was before I really got into the Souls-like kind of games, or the really kind of quote unquote difficult games, harder games. And so I enjoyed the look of it and the gameplay, but it was just a bit much for me. And so I just kind of like, I'm not going to play this. But now that I'm, a full-time red-blooded Souls-like fanatic, I'm still very much chomping at the bit to play Blasphemous. Now that I've started Remnant, Blasphemous is going to have to wait because Remnant is really fun too. But Blasphemous 2, it looks to be like Blasphemous, but more of it and presumably better. So that's cool for Blasphemous fans. I still have to play through the first one before I can get super excited about number 2. So yeah, there's that. Blasphemous, if you're excited. I'm like, August is stacked. Here's one good game, and here's a bunch that I'm like, what is this? Oh yeah, Jonathan C., good to see you. Good morning. Just got back from soccer training. Won't be able to stay long, but we'll listen to the whole thing tomorrow morning my time. Thank you, Jonathan, for popping in. Anyway, Septimus07. Hello, gents. Hello, Septimus. Good morning. So yeah, let's get to some other good ones. Blasphemous 2, obviously. Good. So, Moving Out 2 is another one. If you've not played Moving Out, it's one of those that will put your relationships to the test. It's kind of similar to Overcooked, where it's kind of a top-down, cartoony indie game where you have to use teamwork to get through some kind of difficult and frustrating objectives within the time limit. In this case, getting furniture from inside of a house out into the moving truck. And there are all kinds of obstacles in the way. There'll be like a couch that takes 2 people to carry, and so one person has to get on the other end, and you have to like kind of move in concert with each other to get it around corners and across the street. Don't get hit by cars. Don't slip on puddles. And you've got to toss it into the truck. It's also kind of a mini game in and of itself, getting everything to fit into the moving truck oftentimes. So Moving Out 2 looks to sort of take that formula and crank it up to ridiculous proportions. It looks very colorful and very silly, with lots of different settings outside of just like normal houses and neighborhoods. So if you're into that sort of thing, I'm sure my kids are. If they knew that this game existed, that it was coming out, they would be super excited for it because they loved Moving Out. So yeah, it's fun, but man, blame will be made. Blame will be made. I'll just say that. What are you doing? I'm picturing Ross Geller trying to move a couch upstairs. Pivot. Okay, August 17th. Here we go. This is one, honestly, I'm surprised. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it's honestly, I can't say it's the most the game I'm most looking forward to this month, but gosh dang, it's close. August 17th, Vampire Survivors on Nintendo Switch, and that alone would have really had me hyped up. Like, I love Vampire Survivors. It was one of those that the chat, you guys, convinced me to get and play. It was, I got it on Steam for $5, and you guys were like, play Vampire Survivors. And I remember thinking, what is this garbage looking game? Why is it $5? Am I going to get hacked? Am I going to get some kind of Russian virus on my computer that's going to steal all of my assets? Like I subscribed to Forbes magazine or something. It's going to steal all 500 of my dollars. But it was very off-putting. But it turned into like the most, I think probably the closest thing to a drug addiction I've ever had. Vampire Survivors. And I did a stream of it, and it was fun, but it was the aftermath of those streams where I spent so many nights in a row up past 2-3 in the morning playing Vampire Survivors. I had to cut myself off. I had an intervention for myself to stop playing Vampire Survivors, and I cut myself off. I couldn't do it because it was eating up that much of my time and attention. Because the hook of Vampire Survivors, much like any good game or any good, gambling addiction is just one more. Just one more run. You have 30-minute runs. Well, presumably, if you make it to 30 minutes, you win. But, I mean, just one more. Just one more. Just one more. And, yeah, your life will just evaporate before your very eyes. And it taps into this kind of innate thing in your brain. It's just like this pleasure center in your brain. And it's pure fun. The fact that it's on Nintendo Switch alone would get me excited because it was only on PC, and I used to be more into PC gaming. I'm not so much these days, mostly because my PC is not really up to the task. I mean, I could play Vampire Survivors, no problem, but I just for streaming and things like that, I prefer console games just because it doesn't add to the load on my poor computer. It can handle streaming things, but playing a game and streaming on the same machine, it kind of has a little mini heart attack. But I just prefer the feeling of a controller in my hands, sitting on the couch, playing a video game that way. And so coming on Nintendo Switch is perfect for this type of game. You can take it, play it in bed, play it on the toilet, play it on the bus, whatever. I love it. That's fantastic. But they didn't even stop there. They added 4-player split screen. It's not even split screen. 4-player co-op. 4-player Vampire Survivors co-op. And if that is not just the best thing I've ever heard of, I don't know what is. Seriously. I should also note that my wife, the drink fairy herself, also became heavily addicted to Vampire Survivors. I'm actually spreading the gospel of Vampire Survivors to everybody I know. She too had many nights where the sun came up and she wondered, oh no, am I going to make it through today? Having slept not at all. So she actually played it way more than I did, I'll say. But it's just a testament to how fun it is. And I also infected a good friend of mine with it. I was talking to him on the phone, and we talk. He lives in Texas, so we don't see each other that often. But we were talking on the phone, and I said, "You got to play this game. It's $5. It's very addictive. Be warned." And so he's like, "Okay." So he talked to me a few weeks later, a month later, and was like, "Dude, I can't. I have to stop playing this game." And I'm pretty sure his wife doesn't like me anymore because I introduced him to this game. But he'd send me a video, it's just his face, and it's like the Vampire Survivors music in the background. He's a total junkie. So yes, it's not a game that you can just play one round of. It's like Lay's potato chips. I bet you can't eat just one. I bet you can't just play one run of Vampire Survivors. So having co-op, it can satisfy both mine and the Drink Fairy's needs. We can both get our fix and watch our lives crumble together. So I'm very excited. August 17th. So that is on a Thursday. I believe, so this is just kind of an administrative thing for the James Loves Games regulars. The 17th and the 24th, we're having big game releases. And I am, well, not the 24th, but the 25th, August 25th. I'm not going to be able to stream on the 17th and the 24th because I've got work stuff those nights. But Friday, I'm going to be streaming those Fridays instead, the 18th and 25th. Just to throw that out there. I'm going to be playing some of these new games this month, but the schedule is going to be a little skewed because of my grown-up job, my real work. Jonathan C. Pivot explains the Russian sex bots. Yes, exactly. Brett Williams says Returnal did that to me. Returnal also had some very addictive gameplay. It didn't really hook me as much, but I can see how it would hook a lot of folks. Let's see. Brett Williams, I sometimes forget you were primarily an Xbox guy once upon a time. Yes, I was an Xbox guy. Not really for any particular reason other than the fact that me and my friends all played Halo, and I didn't have the money for multiple systems so much. So that was kind of the default. But yeah, since Halo kind of is not so good these days, I got a PlayStation instead. And I've never looked back. I'm so glad with that choice. But yeah, Septimus07, once upon a time, PNZ was the same for me. PNZ. Fill me in on what PNZ is. I'm not sure I know what that is. I'm sure you're going to say it and I'll be like, oh, PNZ. But anyway, Vampire Survivors. I'm very much looking forward to that. We'll try to do a co-op stream at some point. It should be fun. But yeah, Vampire Survivors. I haven't played it in probably 6 months, 5 or 6 months. And I have the music stuck in my head right now. Like I'm looking at a screenshot of it and I have the music. Dun, 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 dun. Like it's burned into my brain. It's like my brain is an old arcade cabinet of like Street Fighter 2 and I've got like a power bar like burned into it. Got the music burned into my brain. Okay, moving on. August 18th, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Now this is one, I apologize. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, not punk. Every time I see this title, my brain wants to read cyberpunk because, that's the more obvious choice. My brain's trying to make a shortcut. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk for Nintendo Switch and PC. This is basically, I just learned about this today. I was looking through this list and I was like, what is this game? Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. And it's basically a spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio, older game. And it's kind of a cartoony, colorful, cel-shaded looking, like, it looks kind of like you're on rollerblades or skateboards kind of, and you're skating all over town, spray painting stuff and running from the cops. It looks fun. I don't know. I from what I've read about it, the people who are excited about it are really excited about it. It doesn't look like my cup of tea particularly. It's got kind of a retro look that I kind of like, that harkens back to like the PS1, PS2 days. That looks pretty interesting. But, some people are excited about it, and I wanted to just throw it out there. It's not one that I'm going to get, but, if you're into Jet Set Radio, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk with an F might just be up your alley. It'd be pretty good. So there's that one the very next day. I'm certainly not going to have time for it a day after Vampire Survivors. I'm going to need a lifetime to get all of Vampire Survivors out of my system. So yeah, August 22nd, Immortals of Avium. Now, I'm not going to play this one, right? It looks like just so mediocre. And I'm only bringing it up because I know it's trying to be one of these like big blockbuster releases. I can kind of tell this is the type of game that executives made. Like, let's make a game. We got some facial capture of like real people that you recognize. It's like a first person shooter, but with magic, and it's in this crazy world. And it seems like the type of thing on paper that would check a lot of boxes. But as I see it, it just looks really mediocre. Like, it looks like a dozen other games that have come out in the last 3 or 4 years. Much like how, what was it? Atlas Fallen looks for like third person action games. This one looks for like first person games. And it just, I don't know. It doesn't look fun. It looks like, I think if this game came out 10 years ago, it would have been pivotal. It would have been like a core memory for gamers everywhere. Like it would have been, groundbreaking, and everybody would be talking about it even today. Best of all time type of conversations 10 years ago, maybe. But as it stands today, it's just kind of like, what are you trying to be? I don't know. If you're excited for Immortals of Avium, I don't want to rain on your parade. Like, enjoy it. Here's what the description says: Call of Duty with magic is how Ascendant Studios' debut work has been pitched, which should tell you all you need to know. Like, if you the way that you yourself are describing your own game, the first game that you've made, and you're referencing another franchise to compare it to, like that to me is just sad. You've got to just make it your own thing. How would you describe, here's your one chance, your new studio, this is your first big title. How would you describe it? Call of Duty with magic. Well, that's just, I'm sorry. Like, I know that gets your mind in the right place, but it's just, be a little more original than that. In this all-new FPS, players take on the role of a battle mage who wields eye-popping spells in a fight to end an eons-long conflict. Okay. Like, Call of Duty doesn't really have the pull that I think it did 10 years ago, like I said. So if you came out with Call of Duty with magic in 2013, people would have lost their minds. You know, the internet would have broken, and it would have been a huge hit. Maybe it'll be a huge hit now, but I don't hear anybody who's excited about Immortals of Avium. If you are, again, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but it doesn't excite me at all. It looks like I said, it looks like a group of executives got together and said, this is what the gamers want. It's that Call of Duty with magic. Magic Duty, says Brad. D-O-O-D-Y, Magic Duty. Yeah, that is what it looks like. Zane Charon, welcome to the chat. Yo, James, was randomly on YouTube and saw you streaming. Awesome, good to see you, Zane. So yeah, Magic Call of Duty is really not really doing it for me. So again, if you're into Immortals of Avium, I hope it's really good and I hope you enjoy it a lot. It's not my cuppa, if that makes sense. So that brings us, that was August 22nd for Immortals of Avium. August 25th. Now this is a big one for me personally and for a lot of people. August 25th, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon. And first thing I got to say about it is, can we drop the tagline? Can we drop like the subtitle of the game, Fires of Rubicon? Like, we don't have to call it that every time we mention the game. Like, can we just call it Armored Core 6? Like, it's like every time you reference Halo, it's Halo Combat Evolved. Like, we don't need to call it that. Just call it Armored Core 6 and, you know, put Fires of Rubicon in like really tiny letters below it. Small thing, but I'm very excited for Armored Core 6. Very excited for Armored Core 6. Armored Core, history lesson for all you youngsters out there. Armored Core was the very first PS1 game that I bought. And if you grew up in a house with siblings like I did, then at some point somebody probably got a console for their birthday or for Christmas, or somebody bought a console with their allowance that they saved up or whatever. And that console became that sibling's console, and you got to borrow or use that sibling's console. Such was the case with the PS1 in my household. My brother got the PS1. I don't remember if he got it for his birthday or he saved up for it, but it was his, like, undoubtedly. He made that known. It was his PS1. And so he got some games for it initially. I think the first games we got for it were Final Fantasy Tactics and Dragon Ball GT, which was a pretty cool fighting game for its time. And so having the power of the PlayStation in our household, finally, for the very first time, we were a little late to the PlayStation game. I got Armored Core, the first one, at, I want to say, Babbage's, if anybody remembers that game store chain. I got it for probably, I don't even remember how much. It was cheap. I got it for like $20 because it was not a big storied franchise at that point. And I want to say it was like From Software's first game. I might be wrong on that point. Armored Core. Of course, Armored Core 6 pops up. When did Armored Core come out? It was... No. Armored Core... the first. 1997. Yeah. Armored Core came out in 1997. From Software. Developed it, of course. And, oh no, they did Kingsfield first. Kingsfield came out in 94. which I don't know anybody that's played Kingsfield. But anyway, it was one of the first FromSoft titles, and I didn't know anything about FromSoft. They didn't do Dark Souls or any of that stuff at that time, so it was just a mech game. I loved it so much. It was like the perfect game for the perfect time in my life. I think I was in like 8th grade when I got that one, and so it's just like what a dream come true. I get to customize my own mech and go on missions, and I can even change the color and make my own emblem. Like, it was a hoot, and I loved it. And I got the sequel, Project Phantasma, and then I got another one of the Armored Cores on PS2, Silent Line. And so I was kind of an Armored Core nut back in the day. I lost track of it at some point after a while, and so but this is very timely. Like, Armored Core, it means a lot to me personally. It was kind of one of those that none of my friends really played. It was just like a me game. And so it means a lot to me personally. I'm very excited. It looks really amazing. And one thing I'll tell to a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I'll tell to anybody listening right now, which is probably not a lot of people, but if you're into FromSoft games, if you're into like Soulsborne games, this isn't necessarily for you. Just because FromSoft is making it doesn't necessarily mean it's for you. And I say that because I see a lot of that discourse online where people are like, I've never played an Armored Core game, but I loved Dark Souls, or I loved Elden Ring, or I loved Bloodborne, and it's the same developer, so maybe I'll like Armored Core. That's really not necessarily true. So I hope there's not a whole lot of disappointment from people about it. It's just, they're very, very different. They're not at all alike. And it really speaks to the versatility of FromSoft's developers, that they're able to pretty much simultaneously work on Sekiro, Elden Ring, and Armored Core 6 at the same time. Presumably, they were working on Armored Core 6 for several years. So all three of those games were being worked on at the same time, which is crazy to me. Zane Charon says, did you see that report that on over 1 million PS5s have only ever had Call of Duty played on them? Crazy. 1 million have only ever had Call of Duty played on them? That's weird. I guess it's people who just like don't have the money for a game, and so they just play Warzone, the free version of Warzone. I don't know. Jack Moore, good to see you. Good morning. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well. Brett Williams, I was second youngest of 5. No one owned anything. You had an anarcho-syndicalist commune in your house. Brett Williams, Armored Core will break people all over again. I think it will. It's just one of those things. And the core mechanic of it is customizing your mech. I mean, that's really what the game's all about. And so, like, if you want to succeed in missions, there's not going to be, presumably, if it's like the other Armored Cores, there's not going to be like a best set of equipment that's going to get you through the whole game. This isn't Elden Ring, where you can get rivers of blood or or whatever and just waltz through every boss. It's not going to work like that. You're going to have to swap parts out. You're going to have to buy a bunch of parts and swap them out between missions. And that's the fun of it. It's like Gran Turismo in the future, where you really have to customize and optimize your mech. And it's super fun. And I'll spend hours just working on the color scheme. You can work on like the finish of the mech. So like you can make it look all rusty, you can make it look dirty and scratched up, or you can make it all polished and shiny and like neon colored. It's very cool. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with it at first. I kind of want to make an Ava from Evangelion. I kind of want to make a Gundam. I love mechs, and it makes me so happy when there's a good mech game that comes out. Like, I love mech anime, and so it so often goes the wrong way in the mech games. Like, so many of them come out and they're just awful, and I don't know why. Like, this is simple, folks. Like, Armored Core's been doing it for decades, literally, and they get it right every time. I've never played a bad Armored Core game. Virtual On was fun back in the day in the arcades. You know, there's a right way to do this and a wrong way, and Armored Core is the best way to do it, honestly. Zane Charon, I've never played Armored Core, but will probably get it if it reviews well. But so many games in the coming months. Geesh. Yes, a geesh indeed. I totally agree. But Armored Core, like I said, Armored Core for me is special. It deserves a day one purchase. For 13-year-old James. 13-year-old James would be happy to know that 39-year-old James is getting Armored Core 6 on launch day and playing it on the internet, of all things, in front of people. What? My eighth grade brain is blowing up right now. Brett Williams says, it does look like FromSoft took some elements from Elden Ring gameplay, though. Perhaps. They haven't made an Armored Core game in several years. And so I'm sure that they've learned a lot of stuff since going down the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring path. And so I'm sure they're going to be bringing a lot of new things to the table. And I'm really excited to see what they did with it. Now, I haven't played an Armored Core game in at least 20 years. So I don't really know. My expectations for gameplay are just that it was fun. And I just expect this to be fun. And I remember there's a lot of strafing and a lot of like boosting and a lot of shooting missiles. And that's pretty much the whole game. So I'm not sure what elements from previous FromSoft games are going to be present. But, I don't think that would necessarily be a bad thing. I think just whatever they've learned over the past decade that works, that they can bring to it would be fun. They've introduced that stagger gauge for like fighting bosses that reminded me a lot of Sekiro. And so it's sort of like, what was it? It was kind of like Final Fantasy 16. It looked like, so there's like a stagger gauge, and as you build it up, once they're staggered, then you can do a whole bunch of damage, while it's staggered. So that looks like something that they borrowed a bit from Sekiro, but to a lesser degree. But it looks really good. I'm very excited for it. I'm gonna spend hours and hours probably on the first stream of Armored Core 6 customizing my mech. So you guys will have to forgive me. I don't even know what I'm gonna go for. I might make it a Gundam theme, because I've yet to play a good Gundam game, which is ridiculous to me. Like, Gundam as a franchise predates video games. Let that sink in. Gundam, the anime, as a franchise, predates video games by many years. Okay? They've had all the time in the world to make a good Gundam video game, and they have not done it yet. And I just don't know, like, who's getting the license to make these games? Why can't they give it to somebody who knows what they're doing? Why can't they give a Gundam license to FromSoft? I would totally play a Gundam game like this with Gundam skins. Like, come on, make it happen. I would download skins. I would buy and download Gundam skins to play it like this. Like Armored Core 6. I say like this. I have an Armored Core screenshot on my PC right now, on my monitor. So I'm pointing to it like you guys know what I'm talking about. Just like this. You know what I'm talking about? Like this. But yeah, it looks awesome. I'm really excited about it. I'm sure it's going to be difficult and frustrating at some points, but that's okay. That's FromSoft. And that's really Armored Core. Like, I remember getting quite upset during some boss fights as an 8th grader, like an 8th grader would. But yeah, it's looking good. It's looking real good. So that's going to be, as I said, that's not going to be a normal Thursday stream. That's going to be a Friday night stream. So yeah, look out, world. We're going to be streaming that the day after it comes out. Gundam style. Exactly. Gundam style. Dwayne Johnson, good to see you. I'm looking forward to the October one thumbnail saying October going to be stacked. Oh, dude, I'm going to do an October one for sure. October is going to be lit. Just for Spider-Man 2 alone, but everything else as well. So, okay. I've got 21 minutes to talk about the game for which I am most excited for August 2023. And probably it's the most or the second most hyped I am for a game this year. And honestly, I've played a little bit of it. I've played the demo. It looks it's just downright fun. It taps into the nostalgia. August 29th, Samba de Amigo Party Central. I'm so excited for Samba de Amigo. Sorry. I couldn't help myself. It comes out the same day as the game I'm actually excited for, Sea of Stars, which you've probably heard me talk about before. I'm so excited for Sea of Stars. It sounds like a tongue twister. I'm so excited for Sea of Stars, seashells on the seashore. Sea of Stars, if you're unfamiliar, is a retro-inspired JRPG, turn-based JRPG that borrows heavily and is not shy about showing off how it's inspired by games like Chrono Trigger and like Secret of Mana and a lot of those classic Super Nintendo 16-bit RPGs. It's so good. My goodness, my goodness. My captain. This game looks so amazing. I don't even know where to begin, but I'll just say, oh, Dwayne, James, you looking good. The camera quality is amazing. Thank you, Dwayne. I've got my sleepy eyes because it's very early. I need to start wearing makeup for these streams. That's how vain I am. Zane Charon says, is Atlas Fallen on anybody's radar? I really dug the Surge, James, and I'm curious what the devs do with this one. Yeah, Atlas Fallen. It looks, I don't know, okay. I touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's just like, it doesn't really stand out at anything to me. But I don't know. It might be really good, but just from the looks of it, it doesn't really get me excited. Not like Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is looking good. So it taps into nostalgia, and maybe that's the theme of August is nostalgia, because the games I'm most excited for, Vampire Survivors, Armored Core 6, and Sea of Stars, they all kind of tap into some nostalgia for me personally. Vampire Survivors, obviously, you got like the pixelated 8-bit look. It looks like Castlevania on the NES, so that's cool. Armored Core, long storied franchise with mechs, so that's tapping into the 8th grade James. Sea of Stars taps into the 16-bit RPG era, and it looks it's so good, y'all. And the thing that I played the demo, like I said, and the demo's about maybe 2 hours long. It's a chunky demo, and they did a good job excuse me, of giving you a slice of the game that doesn't really spoil anything. And you kind of hop around a little bit, and they limit your access to places, but you get a feel for all aspects. You get the exploration in the wilderness. You get lots of different fights with enemies. You get a couple boss fights. You get to explore a town and go to the shop and talk to NPCs and have some laughs and go to the overworld map and listen to the music. But everything about it is so polished. And if you're not familiar, let me see real quick. Sea of Stars was developed by Sabotage Studios. And if you're familiar, if you've heard that before, they also developed, what was it? I apologize. Where was it? Sabotage Studios, The Messenger. And The Messenger was a really fun kind of Ninja Gaiden homage, that indie game that came out 2018, 2019. I think it was 2018. And it was kind of released on everything. But it's like it's like an 8-bit Ninja Gaiden clone that's like better than Ninja Gaiden, but there's an element where you can kind of hop between worlds, and you hop into the world, you hop through the portal and go into like a 16-bit version of the world. And so it's crucial that you use this during certain portions of the game, because certain sides are only accessible on one way. Kind of like how Lords of the Fallen is doing, where you can hop between worlds, and some places are only accessible through this particular world. A lot like that. And they did it really well. And it was super fun, had a great sense of humor, very colorful, very well animated, great music. I mean, they knocked it out of the park. And again, that's one that I played, I think, before I started this channel. I played that one on the Xbox. I think that was a Game Pass game, but it was really, really good. I've got it on I think it's available on PS Plus as well. So if you're into that type of thing, The Messenger is a good way to experience how good they are at making games and how good they are at capturing the essence of a particular type of game. 2D, platformers, 2D action platformers being the messenger, and Sea of Stars for old school JRPGs. But it's everything about it is top notch. Like, they captured the essence of games like Chrono Trigger really well. You've got the enemies are on screen, so you can choose to engage with them or avoid them if possible. The music is so good, and they did such a fantastic job with the music, but they also enlisted the help of Yasunori Mitsuda, who is probably my favorite my favorite composer, game music composer. I couldn't think of the word composer. It's really early. I'm like, game music man. He's the best game music man. My favorite superhero. But Yasunori Mitsuda is a legend. I mean, he did the music for Chrono Trigger. He did the music for Chrono Cross, Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3. I mean, his style is very apparent, and you can tell when it's a Mitsuda game. He knocks them all out of the park and does so well. In addition to like a couple dozen other games and game series that he's done, like Inazuma 11 and Black Butler, Yokai Watch Forever Friends. But he's a guest composer on Sea of Stars, and so he doesn't do all the music, but he does a couple different tracks here and there. And what's really cool is I read in an interview that they contacted him to see if he would be interested in doing some tracks for Sea of Stars, and he told them, Sabotage Studios, that he was honored that they would call him to ask him to be a part of their project, because he loved the Messenger so much and he really respected them and liked the work that they did. And I'm like, if I'm working on anything and someone like Yasunori Mitsuda says, "Oh, I'd love to be a part of your project. I really like your stuff," I think I would probably die right then and there. But it's very cool for them, very cool for him. So, yes, I'm very excited. Chrono Trigger has one of the best soundtracks of all time. Even Chrono Cross does. And I didn't love the gameplay of Chrono Cross or the story so much, but like the music is the one thing in that game that's just about perfect. And so, and that's thanks to Mr. Mitsuda. So yes, music wise, it's fantastic. But the guy their primary person that worked on the music too. And I'm going to look up his name right now because rude. What are you doing, James? Composer Eric Brown. How could I forget a name as could I forget a name as memorable as Eric Brown? Sorry, Eric. I don't mean to make light, but yeah, I do. Eric Brown, fantastic job on the music in Sea of Stars, and I've only heard a little bit of it, but it's very good. I could listen to it all day. I imagine that's going to be one that I listen to the soundtrack at work until I'm just sick of it. Brett Williams says, "I don't think I can keep watching this. The host isn't even wearing any makeup. What am I, Richard Nixon at the 1960 presidential debates?" Oh, reaching with that joke, reaching with that reference. Brett Williams also says, "My favorite Music Man is Professor Harold Hill, but I'm old school." Professor Harold Hill. Who's that? I'm not sure I'm familiar with that name. But anyway, Sea of Stars. So gameplay wise, it's very reminiscent of games like Chrono Trigger, and the placement of your characters on the screen also changes and matters a little bit. It also borrows heavily from Super Mario RPG, which I'm going to be talking about Super Mario RPG when we come closer to the release of that remake, which is a miracle unto itself. I'm very excited about that one. But it borrows gameplay-wise from Super Mario RPG in a couple of ways. One, in the combat itself, it's not just like most turn-based RPGs where you select a command and then the animation executes the command. You enter a command, and some of them will do extra damage if you time the attack. So if you like hit the A button as they're smacking the enemy, you do like double damage or whatever. But there are some attacks that too do combos, and if you do the timing right, you can keep the combo going, which is so engaging. It makes the game so much more engaging because you're so focused. You can't just kind of willy-nilly hit the A button and just do attacks one after the other until the battle's over. Like, you have to really pay attention to the timing. On defense as well, as you're getting attacked, if you're able to time it right, you have, I think, have the damage coming in to your character. So you kind of pop up a little shield. And it really changes the game tremendously just from one little button push. And so that's definitely borrowed from Super Mario RPG, but the level up system too. And if you remember from my last podcast episode, I kind of griped about Final Fantasy 16's leveling up, how it didn't really matter that you leveled up. I didn't mention this, but I'd forgotten, you know, when you level up in Final Fantasy 16, you know, it kind of stops the game and it says level up and it shows all the numbers on the screen, but like the numbers on the screen are pointless. Like, they don't, like, everything goes up every time you level up. So you've got like 10 different stats and they're all like, and they all, it shows how many points you went up in each category, but like, you can't pick which categories you go up in over others. It's just everything went up by 3 points. Back. Okay. I'm literally doing nothing with that information. It's like when I weigh myself in the morning on the scale, like, all right, that number changed. I'm not doing anything with that information. So I don't even know why I'm looking at it, but I know what it is now. There we go. Hooray. So, but when you level up, there's really no choice. You get some points for, like abilities and stuff that you can upgrade later on, but Super Mario RPG did it really well where you leveled up and yeah, your base stats went up, but it gave you a choice. So it gave you a choice to pick between like more attack, more defense, or more special power. And so, or like more HP or more MP. And it was like, it would give you a choice between 3, and what 3 would show up would be totally random. So between like magic attack up, regular attack up, defense up, HP up, MP up. So out of those 5 things, I think that was it. Out of those 5 things, 3 would show up and you could pick one for each level for each character. And so it gave you a little bit more agency over what direction your character leveled up. And so it was really fun. And so you could say like, oh, well, you know, Peach is taking too much damage, so I'm going to give her a little bit more HP, and that kind of thing. And so that's sort of the level up system for Sea of Stars. It's going to give you 3, you get to choose between 3 different things that character is going to level up in. And so I really like it. It's simple and straightforward. It gives you a little more control over your party as far as what direction they're leveling up in. And it's really fun. And just visually, I like the callback to Super Mario RPG. Like if you've played Super Mario RPG, you recognize it instantly. And it's very cool. And like when you level up, you feel like you've accomplished something. It's like, oh, I leveled up. It's like opening up a treasure chest in a game. You don't know what's going to be in there, but it's nice. It could be like five gold coins or whatever. And it's like, but when you see a treasure chest, you get excited and you want to open it. And it's the same thing when you level up and Sea of Stars. It's like you level up, you're like, yay, I get to pick one of these. What's going to pop up? So it's just a little dopamine hit for the hard work you put in leveling up, as opposed to Final Fantasy 16, where it's just like your strength went from 56 to 59. You're like, all right, cool. I'm glad that happened. Hooray. So yeah, I'm never going to stop complaining about Final Fantasy 16. It was good. It was good, but not great. Shining Lugia, good to see you. Good morning. This is a nice after work surprise. I'm glad I could be a nice after work surprise for you, Shining Lugia. Brett Williams, I thought you'd get that right away because you love the old musicals too. He's the main character in The Music Man, James. Oh, I am so sorry. Womp womp for James. I apologize. Professor Harold Hill. I have not seen The Music Man. I've seen some musicals, and I've heard even more, but I'm not familiar with that one. So maybe I should listen to that while I'm at work today. Anyway, back to Sea of Stars and why it's great, why I'm so excited for it. It has a good sense of humor. You know, It's funny. It's a funny game, and I want more funny games. Final Fantasy 16, to go back to it, there's a dead horse over here behind me that's covered in flies that smells, and I'm just going to keep smacking it with a bat until until it's just liquefied. I'm going to beat that dead horse until my arms get so tired. But Final Fantasy 16 was really dark and depressing of a game. There were a couple of moments that were kind of funny. Some of the dialogue between Sid and Clive was pretty funny. Sid was funny, I'll say. I liked Sid's character and his sense of humor. But the game itself wasn't particularly funny. And I like a game with a good sense of humor, and Sea of Stars is one of those. It's got great writing, great characters, some jokes sprinkled out throughout the game, at least throughout the demo that I played. And it's fun. I like it. It takes me away from the struggles of the real world. When I play Final Fantasy 16, I feel like, oh man, the world is ending and there's catastrophic weather. It's like 100 degrees outside when it should be like 90, you know. It just reminds me of all the problems that exist in the real world. It's like, oh, the government is bad and the world is crumbling and people are falling into chaos. Yeah. Okay. I don't need a game to, get stuck into that mindset. I want to play something fun and magical and adventurous and whimsical and whisk me away to a magical world of fun and colorfulness and good music and good times and pirates. Got to be pirates. So yeah, there are definitely pirates in Sea of Stars. But anyway, I'm super hyped, y'all. What are your thoughts? What are you most hyped for August? There's a lot to choose from, honestly. My three are the ones you see in the thumbnail, like Vampire Survivors, Armored Core 6, and Sea of Stars. Obviously are the ones I'm most excited for. What are you most excited for? Now, all of these, I think, I think these three I'm probably going to get day one. I'm not going to stream them day one, but I'm definitely getting them day one. I've been waiting for Sea of Stars for so long. I saw a screenshot in a magazine. I think it was in a Game Informer magazine like a year ago. And I was like, that looks interesting. And then I saw like inspired by games like Chrono Trigger and was like, Har? And so it's been on my radar ever since. But I'm very excited for y'all. Seriously. It might be my game of the year. If it continues to go the way the demo did, then if it fulfills my very high expectations I have of it, then it might be my game of the year. As funny as that sounds, but how crazy is the game of the year race this year? It's a crazy year. Like, I'm so glad Elden Ring came out last year, because if it was this year, I don't know where it would fall in between the cracks maybe. But like, there's a lot of good stuff this year, you guys. I don't even know where to start. I'm going to do a video on that. I'm going to do a podcast episode on that topic, so we can discuss that at length later on, probably in December. I'll probably talk about it like right before the Game Awards, just so I can get my predictions out there so that you all can see that I was right about all of them. Once again, I don't think I got a single category right on last year's Game Awards. I think maybe I got like best content creator, and it wasn't me, so who cares? So yeah, Brett Williams says Armored Core for me. I'm heading out to the mountains. See y'all sometime next week. Have fun in the mountains. Don't get eaten by a mountain lion. See you next week, Brett. But yeah, there's a lot this year, you guys, and I don't even know where to start. I really don't, but we'll get there. So yeah, thanks for tuning in for today's podcast episode. I'm excited. As usual, I'm very excited. Vampire Survivors is going to eat up a lot of my time. I already know. Like, I'm going to have to keep my Switch controllers charged constantly because I'm going to push them to the test. Shining Lugia says Remnant 2 or Grand Blue for me. We'll have to see. Grand Blue is another one. Oh, I totally forgot to mention. I'm glad you brought that up. In the last minute of the stream, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, they're going to be announcing in August, sometime this month, the release date of Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. And I'm so excited. That one, if that's the game that I think it's going to be, if it lives up to my high expectations for what it should be, that one could be another Game of the Year contender for me personally. I doubt it's going to, go all mainstream and, be as popular as like Spider-Man 2 or whatever. But for me personally, if it checks all my boxes, it's going to be Game of the Year material for sure. For sure. So August is going to be a big month in that regard as well. Shining Lugia says, announcing the release date better not be another year delay. No, they have said it is coming out. They said winter 2023, which really only means December. They just haven't nailed down the exact date. And they said they have announced that they are going to announce the release date in August. So we're going to see within the next 28 days when that game is actually coming out. So more reason to get excited for August. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in to this podcast episode. I'm so excited to be doing this. It's a great way to get my lazy bones out of bed in the morning and get a lot of this talkiness out of my system, because the Drink Fairy can only take so much of my prattling on about all these games. So it's good that you guys are here to be my release valve for information. Dwayne Johnson says, James, mine is Dead Cells Return Castlevania. For some reason, it caught my eye and it looks fun. That one does look pretty cool. What a crossover, those two games, Dead Cells and Castlevania. That's a cool idea. But anyway, tune in tonight at 8 o'clock for Gorogoa, a game you've probably never heard of. It came out 5 years ago for the Nintendo Switch and probably PC. I don't know. But it's indie game. It's a puzzle game. Tune in for a chill night. We're going to get through it. It's another 2-hour one, roughly. So my plan is to beat that game tonight. So tune in. Could be 2.5 hour stream. We'll see. But I'll see you tonight at 8 U.S. Central Time. And thank you all once again for joining in. Let me pop this out there for the sponsors. Thank you very much, Jack Moore, Turbo Kid 8, Last Olympian, and Ever Sprite for being sponsors. Thank you to all the members as well. You guys are the best. I love you all. And I will see you next time right here on Bye.